Welcome YouTubers. This is one of my first tutorials on how to use the GoFlight interface tool. This is provided by Steve Munn of Polypot Software. You can go to Polypot's website here. This is Steve Munn's website. He goes by Polypot Software. He's the provider of the GoFlight interface tool. You can purchase the tool through his online shop, and here it is, GoFlight interface tool. He also has this similar or same type of tool for X-Plane. I have them both. They're both excellent tools. I'm not going to go over the installation of the GoFlight interface tool. I'll make a couple of recommendations about where to install it. I personally prefer to install both my GoFlight software and the GoFlight interface tool outside of my C drive onto a separate drive. I like to keep everything, most of my flight sim stuff, all in one drive. In this particular case, I have the regular GoFlight drivers installed under a directory called GoFlight. I use the same directory to install the GoFlight interface tool. I highly recommend that process. But basically, the idea is to keep GoFlight out of the program files at x86. This is its default installation folder. And as you know, Windows has a different security context under program files, so it's you get more rights if you install GoFlight, or more security rights if you install GoFlight outside of the program files directory. As far as the actual GoFlight executables, if you notice on my desktop here, I have them set to run as administrator. That's what that little shield there means. You go into properties, and here we have compatibility tab, and it's set to run in this program as administrator. Now that's the GoFlight configuration product. There's also the GFDev. I'm running P3D, so this is the GFDev. This is what actually gets loaded in your exe.xaml file. What you want to do here under properties is check its compatibility. This is set to run as administrator, which is fine. Now, the GoFlight interface tool, which is what we're here to talk about today, is also set, I believe, to be run as administrator. Let's go to compatibility tab, and sure enough, there it is, run this program as administrator. I highly recommend you do this to make sure you have the appropriate permissions. I'm going to start this tutorial on using the FlySimware Learjet 35 as a beginning example. I have nothing programmed for it, so it's a good starting point. The first thing you want to do is you want to bring up the GF config. Now this is going to list, all my controls, all the modules I have installed, and it'll have any assignments. What I recommend you do here, you need to make a decision on whether you want to stick with FF default, or if you want to go with a compatible add-on. Let's just get a profile set up first before we do anything else, and we'll go File, Save Configuration As. I'm going to put in Learjet 35. Alright, so now I'm in a Learjet 35.cfg. First thing we need to do is say, okay, are we going to use the default FS autopilot, or are we going to customize the autopilot? In this particular case, I'm going to guess we're going to need to customize the autopilot system. So we need to set this to compatible add-on. Now same with the EFIS, we also want to decide whether we want to use a default layout or if we want to go with a compatible add-on. Are there any other settings we need to do? I'm not going to get into setting up the warnings right now, but if we were going to set the WP6 up for warning lights and resetting the warning lights, you would need to go through here and set these to no selection. But for now, I'm just going to leave them alone. Set them and set that to compatible add-on, which in this case I am going to do that. And then I've got my ready switches. Most of those are already set to no selection. My P8's no selection, 48's no selection. So what I'm doing, again, is just setting the GoFlight config up so that there's no conflicts between it and the GoFlight interface tool. You don't actually need to save this. If you just exit the GoFlight thing, it'll automatically save whatever the current is. Let's bring up the GoFlight interface tool. And there we have it. It will basically list the modules it finds. You might want to go through this list just to verify it's finding everything you have. And if it is, then you're good to go. There's also a settings tab here. About the only thing I change on this particular tab is enable for PMDG Prepare 3D. So here we are. Okay, let's fire up Prepare 3D. As you notice, when Prepare 3D starts, you should see these turn to green. If you don't, then you've probably got a SimConnect problem, which you'll need to resolve by installing either the SimConnect clients or find out if there's something going on with your SimConnect connection. I'm not going to get into details about configuring SimConnect. I'll do that in probably some other tutorial. So Prepare 3D is loaded. We're going to select the vehicle. There we go. Now there's a whole bunch of different configurations here. I'm going to select one that doesn't have the GTN. Not because I don't like the GTN. I do. I have it. It's just I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible right now. As far as the airport, doesn't matter. Whatever you want. You can pick clear skies. This really doesn't make any difference here. I recommend starting off though in daytime, just because when it comes to programming the controls, it'll be a little easier to see. Okay, so here we are. We have the Learjet 35 loaded, and it's in a running state right now. In some circumstances, this may not be something you want, but in this particular case, I'm just going to focus in on activating the spoilers, since that I believe requires an on state. Let's leave the aircraft on. So let me see, spoilers activated. What do we want to do here? Okay, first thing we want to do is we want to bring up detective, and we bring up the detective, click on the detective button. And now there's three key buttons down here called Events Toggle, LVARS Toggle, and Pause Toggle. What we want to do initially is we want to set the Events Toggle and the LVARS Toggle. And as soon as you click those, you notice there's a whole bunch of events and variables being set that will show up in this window. It'll just keep streaming and streaming and streaming indefinitely. At this point in time, what I like to do is I like to move all my control devices around, my rudders, yoke, brakes, and any view motion. I want to move that around. And any throttle motion, I might want to move that around. Essentially, the goal here is to move as much around as you can to try and get the events to trigger, so that I can hit the pause button here, and now I've got a whole bunch of events that I'm not really interested in have been triggered. So what does that mean? Why do I want to do that? Well, I want to do that because over here in the detected column here, it'll detect all the LVAR events that were generated from over here. And since I'm not really interested in those events, I might be at some later point in time, but for what I'm doing specifically right now, which is trying to figure out what the spoiler switch is and how to activate and deactivate the spoiler. So we go over here, we click on the detected button, we have a list of LVARs that's detected. I'm going to check up here, which will select them all, and it could be quite a long list. And then I'm going to hit this button over here that says hide all checked. So I click that button, and now these events are going to be hidden. Well, they won't show up in this window over here. So we're essentially filtering out events we don't want to see. These are the events. Now we do the same thing for the events. We click on the event checkbox here, and it will actually, sorry, I take it back. We go to the detected button. Then we click on the checkbox at the top here, which will select all the events that it detected. And then we go over here and we select hidden. So now we've hidden all these events. We've hidden all these LVARs. Now let's go back down to our little display here, and we'll say pause. That will unpause the activity. Now you see, well, nothing is really happening here. That's actually a good thing. We don't want anything to happen because now we've basically filtered out all those events that we don't care about. Let's go on to actually trying to figure out what the spoiler switch is and what it does and what events it triggers. So let's go back into the sim here, and we'll click on the spoiler arm, or sorry, I should say spoiler extended, spoiler retracted. Now if you notice over here, we have some events. We got a spoiler on event. We see a spoiler switch with a LVAR data of 1. Normally, programming terms, 1 indicates true. Actually, more accurately, 0 indicates false, and anything not 0 is true. So we see our events show up over here, just the ones we're kind of interested in. There are some others. A sound event that was probably generated from the actual clicking of the switch. And there's also the spoiler on event, and then there's the LVAR switch event. Now, what we need to do now is we need to set up our bespoke events. What I like to do here is, okay, I'm going to create a new bespoke event, so I'm going to hit the plus sign here, and it's going to ask me to enter in a bespoke event name. Now, you can name them whatever you want, so long as they don't conflict with the existing bespoke events. And that list of existing events is pretty long. So what I like to do to ensure that what I'm naming them is going to be unique is there's two things I like to do. I like to start with an underscore character, and then I like to indicate the aircraft, or short name for the aircraft. Like in this case, I'm just going to call it Lear. And then another underscore, I'm going to call it spoiler ext, which basically means spoiler on. And I've given a bespoke event. Now I need to assign it things to do. Now what do I assign it to do? Well, I assign it what I see happening over here. Lear spoiler extended is basically spoilers on. So I want this event here called spoilers on. So let me go look up here. I'm going to click on detected because I want to see the detected events, and there's the spoiler on event. So I'm going to highlight that. I don't need to check it, I just need to highlight it, and I'm going to hit the send button, which is going to send that event. And the value I need here is going to be 0. Why do I know this should be 0? Well, I take a look at the spoiler on here, and it says the event data is 0. So that's the same data I want to pass. So I hit that, and if you notice now, it's going to send spoiler on here. Now there's another event we're going to need to do. Otherwise, we're not going to see the animation. What the other event is the spoiler switch is the LVAR. Sorry, not event. The other LVAR is the LVAR spoiler switch with the LVAR data value. I'm going to assume that an on value is 1. And well, I don't actually need to assume that. If I go over into the aircraft over here and click on this, which is extended, I will see this show up at the bottom of the list here: spoilers on, spoiler switch, LVAR data 1. So now I know that's 1. So I go over into this area, I click on my detected LVARs, and now I search for the spoiler underscore SW. And hopefully, yeah, there it is. Okay, I just need to highlight it. I don't need to check it. So now I've got this highlighted, and I want to set this value to 1 and to appear under my bespoke event here. So I'm going to hit the set button. It's going to say what value do you want. Well, I'm going to want this value right here, LVAR data 1. So I'm going to say 1, and then I'm going to hit the checkbox, and there it is. It appears in my list here. Now this is just going to be a list of events that happen. This is a fairly simple one. We're just doing a on-off type scenario here. We're not doing like a toggle. We're not doing any complicated stuff. So here's the Lear spoiler exit. We've got this event. It's going to send that event because that's the same as what happens when you click on the switch. And he's going to send this LVARs. Now we need to retard or turn the spoilers off. So let's create another new bespoke event. Hit the plus. This one I'm going to go underscore Lear again. Underscore. And I'm going to say spoiler ret. For either retract or retard or whatever you want to call that. And then I'm going to hit OK. Now I have a new bespoke event. So what do I want to do with the spoiler off? Well, let me go back over here. Let me click on this switch that turns the spoilers off. Let me go over here in detective, and there it is. Spoilers off, spoiler switch, LVAR data 0. So let's repeat that same process as before, except for this time we're going to go to the events, detected events, spoiler off, since we're setting this up, and then we go send, and we want 0, which is what we have here in the event data. So yep, okay, let that go. Now we want to send this LVAR spoiler switch with a value of 0. So we go back up to our LVARs up here, and we say, okay, I want to set. Now remember, you're using a set here, not a send. For events, you use send for, and that's kind of why the pink, you got the pink button with the pink area here indicating the relationship between the two. Up here you have the, what is that, like a mauve color, and that's the relationship between LVARs, is these buttons here. So we want to send a spoiler switch equal to 0. Now so let's hit our set. Value 0 is correct, and then we go okay. It shows up in our list here. So we have the event and the LVARs. Now let's just go verify our prior extended one. We've got the event and we've got the LVARs. This is for on, and this is basically for off. So we've got that set up now. Now we can test the bespoke events here. I sometimes do this, I sometimes don't. What I usually prefer to do is just go back to the control panel, GoFlight interface tool, main panel here, and select the GoFlight module that I want to assign these bespoke events to. In this case, let's keep it simple. I'm going to do it to a T8. I've got several T8s, so let's just go with the first one. It's already enabled. There's the switch. So you click on the switch here, and there's currently nothing programmed for that particular switch. What we want to do is we want to say, okay, well, a switch event on. Let's set that to, and this is why I use the underscore in the naming of my bespoke events, because I like to have this list can be pretty long, as you can see. It's very, very long. I like to have my events that I create show up first, so I don't have to scroll down through the list. So that's why I use the underscore character, and then I put in the jet, Lear. So we want to set the switch, the spoiler switch on here. So we want to do extended, spoiler extended, and for the switch action, normally you don't have to do anything when you're dealing with fairly simple situations, but it really depends on the aircraft. Sometimes you might need to do an on-off, or an execute, or mouse left. It really depends on the aircraft. But for most cases, you can just set this to nothing. So we've set the Lear extended to on when the switch is in the on position. Now we need to do it for the off position. As you can see, now we have no event, so we got to go select our Lear, and this time we want to retract. So there you go. And now our off is, for the switch off, is now set to Lear spoiler retract. Now we want to be able to set the light data so that when we move our switch, the light lights up for when the spoilers are extended. So we know they're extended, we can see the light on. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to use the spoiler information, the spoiler LVARs variable, as our key, as our variable to trigger the light data being on or off. So let's go to the light data and let's search for the LVARs, which would be spoiler underscore SW. Okay, spoiler, there it is. Okay, so this is the LVARs spoiler SW switch that we found in Detective, and that we know a value of 1 is on, so we set the light action on when the value is 1. So now we've basically said, okay, spoiler, when this spoiler switch value is 1, equal to 1, we want the light to go on. And that's it. We're done. You can just verify that your on is extended and your off is retracted. Okay. Now, what you want to do is you want to actually test the switch. So let's go back into here, and let's take a look at our switch over here. Make sure that it's actually being extended. Oh, there it is. Now, let me switch it back. There you go. Have you noticed that's all been controlled by the GoFlight? I'm not touching it with a mouse or anything. Now, if you want to verify that it's actually happening to the aircraft also, you can go to external view here, and we should see the spoilers activate and deactivate. Alright, so this is, let's get a good look at the spoilers here. Make sure we can see them both. Okay. Now let's activate the spoilers with a GoFlight switch. Oh look, and there they go. Spoilers up. And let's turn them off. And let's retract them. And there you go. Spoilers down. As you notice over here, while that was happening, you can see the events that we've now programmed to switch appearing over here. And that's a good thing also. So let's move on to something a little bit more advanced. Let's try and move on to a push button toggle, where we're actually pushing a button to toggle a state on or off. A good example of a push button here is a yaw damper. And there we go, yaw on, yaw off. Let's take a look at what that does over in the detective screen here. And as you can see, if I click the power for the yaw damper, it actually comes on over here, and we get a power light, primary light. We get a power PRI light with a value of 1 for its data. The LT is most likely going to be the light data. That means this light being on. And then the PWR is probably going to be the actual switch. And that's the PWR switch here. So how do we get this mapped over to a push button? Well, what we're going to want to do is we're going to create a new bespoke event, and we're going to call this, let me see, we'll start again with our underscore Lear. Underscore, we'll call this, let's just call it, yaw underscore toggle. And then hit OK. Now, what we want to do is we want to do a similar process, except for this time we're going to need to add a few little extra items here, go-tos and labels and things like that, so that we can get the toggle effect working. Let's go back into Sim here. We hit the power on. That's power off, sorry. Yaw power off, yaw power on. Those events now should be registered over here under the detected LVARs, and actually they're not events, they're just all LVARs. So what do we want to do? Okay, we want to first thing we want to do is create labels. Label is just essentially a point to go to based on a condition. So let's create a label. I'm going to call this label on, and then hit OK. And now you notice that you have your label here, which is on. Now I'm going to create another label. I'm going to call this off. There we go. Now I have an off, I have an on and an off label. And to keep this fairly clear and simple, I'm going to create another label called exit. It'll become clear later what the exit is there for. Now it's important where these reside. Exit is going to be the last thing that happens, so we want to move that down. You can move the exit down by clicking this down arrow here. It actually moves it down one. I'm going to leave the on there. I'm going to leave the off there. Wow. Now what do I want to do with a toggle? Well, basically a toggle will check the state, and the state, you can either take a look at the power light or you can take the power setting. I'm going to look at the actual button power setting. Alright, so now we've got our label set up. I need to highlight the item I'm going to check to see its state. So I'm going to check the yaw underscore PRI underscore power. I'm going to check this to see what state it is. And this is a LVAR. So I'm going to go up here, look for this detected LVAR. And the LVAR is going to be yaw, so it should be at the end somewhere. There it is. Okay, so I highlight the LVAR. Move this up here. And I'm going to say if this equals 0, I'm actually going to check for 0. If this equals 0, there you go. Now I've got this thing here. It says if this equals, if the yaw PRI power equals 0, then it's going to get next, else next step. What that means is, well, actually what we want to do here is we want to move this up to the top. So we're saying if the yaw is currently in the off position, then execute the next statement. Otherwise, skip the next statement and execute the following statement. So let's say I'm going to execute the next statement, which is the on label. What I want to do is, if this is off, I essentially want to turn it on when I toggle the button. So what I'm going to do is the next statement is I'm going to create a go-to. And then this lists the labels I've created that I can go to. I'm going to go to on. So I've created a new statement here, go to on, and that's his on here. If the yaw PRI power is off, So if the yaw power is off, then it's going to execute the next statement, this one. And this is going to say go to on. Okay, so that's going to go to this label here. Now, what if the yaw power, PRI power, was equal to 1? So in other words, it was not equal to 0. You're going to want to skip this statement and then execute whatever's after this statement. So we obviously don't want to execute on. We essentially want to execute a off. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another go-to statement, and I'm going to say go to off. Hit OK. Now this is in the wrong position. We want to move this up. Now why do we want to move this up? Because the logic is based around what this state is. So if the power state is equal to 0, we want to turn it on. That means that would be the next statement. If the power state equals 1, then it's going to skip this and go here. So if the power state's on, it's going to go to our go to off. So that's going to go to this label off here. Now, we currently don't have anything in here that would be useful, that's doing anything. So we need to start adding these LVARs to our on and off states. So let's start with the on. Okay, on. This is the on state here with the data 1. That's the light and the PWR. So let's set them both. Sometimes you don't need to set them both, but let's just set them both. So we go back to LVARs detected, and then we're going to go with a yaw power. Okay, and we're going to say, okay, well, let's set this to 1 because we want it to go on, and we hit 1. There it is, yaw power. Okay, now we also need to set the PRI light to 1. So let's find this up here in the LVARs detected. There it is. Okay, I want to set this to 1. So remember, we use the set here because we're setting LVARs. Just think of these color matching to show you what's happening. So we go set, and we want a value of 1, and we hit OK. Now the sequence of this may or may not matter. If for some reason it doesn't work, you can try and flip these. So move this up there, do this one first, then this one. In this case, I don't think it's going to matter, but let's just do the actual button first, and then the light setting second. Alright, so now we do a similar thing with off. Okay, we go back to we want to find our, so I'll say set 0, okay, and there you go, you got your off. Now we have to do the other one as well, which you know is the bottom, and we go set 0, off. Let's move this one up 1, just to be consistent. That's the power button 0. Logically speaking, one would think, you press a button, then the light goes on. Not the light goes on, and then you press the button. So I'm sticking with basic logic here of, okay, I press the button, then the light goes on. So we got the power and the light. Or in this case, power off, light off. Now we have an exit. Now, okay, well, why do we have this exit? Well, the thing is, when you execute this, it's going to go here if it's off. It's going to go here if it's on. So it's toggling the opposite state. So this says go to on. So this will say, all right, I'm going to go to on, and this is the label it's going to go to, and it's going to execute this, then it's going to execute this, and then it's going to execute this, and then it's going to execute this, and then execute this. So we obviously don't want to turn it on and then turn it off straight away. So what we need to do is we need to create a go-to within our on here, and we want that go-to say go to exit, because exit does nothing. So let's create a go-to exit, check. Now this is in the wrong section, so we want to move this up into our on section here. You can consider this your little on section right there. So now what's going to happen? Okay, so now if the power is 0, means the power is off, then we're going to go to on. On says go to the label on, so it goes here. This is going to set the power on, set the light on, and then it's going to go to exit. This is exit. So nothing, afterwards it hits exit, it does nothing. There's nothing after exit. And that's good. So what do we want to do for off? Well, we're going to want another exit. Okay, so let's go down here. Let's create another go to. Let's say exit label. All right, there we go. Now we have in the off, we have the go to exit. So let's step through this thing again. You don't actually need to go to exit here, because if you go to the off state, it's naturally just going to fall through to exit. But just for consistency level, I like to purposely identify that it's exiting. It is one less step. It is technically one extra piece of code you don't need. So let's go back to the top again. If the yaw power switch is set to off, then we're going to go and set it to on. This is going to be the next thing to be executed. And this says go to on label. So this goes to this on label here. And then this gets executed, turning the yaw power on. This turns the light on. And then it's done. We go to exit, which is here. Now let's run through the off state. Now suppose this is the yaw power is already on and we're toggling it to off. So if it's already on, we don't go to here because it's not equal to 0. We go to off. And from off it says go to label off. And here's label off. And in the off section, we turn the power off, we turn the light off, and we go to exit. And exit is here. There's just exit out. So that's how we've defined our bespoke toggle. And as you can see, toggles are a little bit more complicated than doing a switch. Switch is fairly easy. It has it on, and then you do bespoke for an off. So now we've got the bespoke toggle event programmed. What do we do? Well, at this point, you might actually want to export all bespoke events. I like to do this every so often, just in case the program crashes. Now, I keep all my events in the GoFlight interface tools. It's under the documents directory. As you can see, I got a whole bunch of other ones I've already done. So let me just save this there. And it's going to say replace because I already saved one earlier. So I say yes, go ahead and replace it. So that's just kind of a precaution. If you make a mistake over here, you can hit this one. That will delete just the line. And then you can go ahead and do something else. For example, suppose I didn't want this go to exit here. I can delete on this X. Boom, go to exit's gone. Do not delete on this one. that will wipe out everything. So let me actually go ahead and add that go to exit back just for clarity's sake. Okay. So we've got our bespoke here. Now we need to assign this to a push button. So let's go up to our main panel, GoFlight interface tool panel here. I'm on the P8 tab. Device 1, I believe, is what I want. If you're not sure what device you're working with, you can click on the identify and it'll actually light the buttons up on the device. I mean, it'll light the LEDs up on that device. So in my case, device 1 is what I want. Be sure to set this to enabled. And let's do the first, actually let's do the last button because it's closest to me. Alright, so we got the button here. Now we've got our bespoke event, the Lear yaw toggle. And all we do is, for the toggle, you just set the one event. You set that to that. You don't set the off, don't set the hold, you only set the on. Button action, you should be able to leave to nothing. And as far as the light on the P8, now you want to set that to the same light data setting here, which would be the PWR PRI LT with a value of 1. So let's try and locate that. is it? There it is. Okay, so we've got that located. Power PR underscore LT. Power PR underscore LT. Okay. Now we know the on value, on state, so we say on, and we know the light, that value needs to be 1, which is, again, matches down here, which means it's in the on state. Alright, so that's all you do for the toggle button. Now we want to verify that it's actually working, so let's go into the sim here. We're actually already in the on state, so let's put it in the off state. So we go into the sim here, and now let's go ahead and click our button, our P8 button on the GoFlight module, and see if this works. And there it does. You can actually see, let me zoom in. You can actually see the animation as well. Off. You can see the button move down, the button move up. Now I'm pressing the the P8 button here on. And you can see over here in the window the events that are being set, and that's basically how you do a P8 toggle. Boom, on, I mean off, on, off. Okay, so now we're back with our toggle event. We've completed that. Now let's go back. There's one thing we missed on our spoiler extend and spoiler retract events. Now if you notice, you go over to the interface here, and there's definitely a click. And when we do it with the GoFlight switch, we don't hear the click. We hear the click of the real world switch, but we don't hear the click of the switch in the actual aircraft. So some people prefer it like that, some don't. I personally would like to add that switch sound. What we need to do is, if you notice, when we take a look at our detective over here, we have a spoiler switch, and then we have a sound event here. Sound LVAR here. So what we can do is we can try and add this sound LVAR to the spoiler extend to see if we get our sound. So we go back over here, go to the LVARs, and we select the sound that we want. Again, this is going to be sound 70, and we say okay, let's set this sound, and it's suggesting a value of 1 here, so let's put a value of 1. Say okay, and there we have it. Now we have our sound. Well, at least we think we have our sound. So let's go ahead and test this. Let's go over here, back into the flight sim. Let's move my switch. Oh, and there we do. We have the sound. Now we turn it off. Notice we don't have the sound because we haven't assigned the sound switch to the off position yet. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to our bespokes. Let's go to the retract, and let's make sure that our sound LVARs is selected, and go ahead and set that. Now I believe the off is going to be a 0, but I may be wrong. It may be a 1 actually triggers the sound. So let's just see what 0 does. Okay, so we got this. We got the event, LVARs, and the sound. Let's go over here and test out the okay, got the on sound. Do we have the off sound? We got the on sound, but no off sound. Okay, so that means we probably just need to set this to 1 rather than 0, and we can do that by clicking on this button here, which will let us edit whatever highlighted value or whatever highlighted line you have in the bespoke events. Click on edit, and it says okay, what value you want to give it. I want to give it 1, and I say okay, and let's go back into sim and actually test to see that on and off both make a sound now. Here we go. On, get our sound. Off, we get our sound. What do you know? There you go. So those are some of the tricks that you have to kind of feel your way around. Really, is the best way to describe it, because they're not always the same, depending on the type of aircraft. And that's how you add additional sounds, so you get the switching sound, and how you can edit bespoke events. Okay, that concludes this first tutorial, covering some basic operations from push button, a toggle, and a simple switch. The next tutorial, I'll dive into actually assigning slightly more complicated controls. Like, for example, I'll go in on the this is the Rex Milviz weather radar. I'll show you how you can set up buttons to emulate a knob, a 5-position knob, such as we have over here. The test, WX, WXT, and map. I'll show you how you can actually set those up to be on buttons. I'll also go over using the actual knob. In this case, I would use a EFIS knob to control the range, and then I'll also go over an RP48 knob to control the tilt.